asynchronous teacher presence. Okay, so we're going to look at asynchronous teacher presence and how to connect teachers and students when students are learning in their own time. So my name is Dan Fitzpatrick. I'm a Google certified trainer and I do some training for Canopy, and I work as a senior leader. So I'm on the leadership team of a secondary school in the northeast of England, a school called Tanfield School. And you can connect on Twitter with me at Dan Fitz Tweets. So what we're going to look at over the next half an hour is why teacher presence is important online, and we'll go over that quite quickly, because I really want to get to the practices using Google for Education, Office 365, and other tools. And then hopefully we'll have a few minutes left at the end for some question and answer. So just as a reminder, Emma went over this in the keynote earlier on, but synchronous is teaching and learning when it occurs together simultaneously. Asynchronous, which is what this session is going to be focused on, is when students access learning at different times. So when we set them work to get on with, and they go off and do it at their own time, which I'm sure a lot of you are doing at the moment. So I'd just like to start with this first activity, which I'm going to put the link for in the chat. So there it is there. So I've put the link in the chat. So if you could click that, what it's going to do is going to open up a Google form, and there are 3 questions there. Do you mind just answering the 3 questions just so I can get a better idea of who's in front of me? That would be amazing. Thank you. And I'll give you 60 seconds if you can. Okay, that's brilliant. So I can see some of you have answered those questions. So the first question was, when your students are working independently online, how are you present to them? And we've got a real mixture here. So we've got people who are available to chat live, some people who do video calls live, some people create audio, and we have some people who create videos as well, which is amazing. And then which tools do you use? We've got a mixture. We've got kind of half people saying Google Classroom, another about a quarter saying Microsoft Teams, and then some people using Google Meet in there as well. And then that last question was quite a selfish question, really. I love asking people who I spend time with that, just because I want to know. I'm looking for the kind of the best advice for my own practice as well, and it's great to share that. So we had managed time properly, and to ask questions frequently for further information, which is amazing. Thank you for sharing those. So I want to kind of jump into why teacher presence is really important in online learning and what it is really. So online learning from the community of inquiry framework is the interrelationship of 3 types of presence. Okay, it's one way to look at online learning. So you've got cognitive presence, being present in thought and in mind, which seems obvious for learning. You've got social presence, so being with other people. And then you've also got the teaching presence as well. And what that looks like, I think when it's broken down, how I like to look at it based on this theory is that in order to make that happen, you have to have good lessons, which seems obvious. You have to create meaningful spaces for communication and also give clear instructions. And we're going to come back to those 3 points in just a moment's time. And I really like this. I think this is kind of underpins this session, really, this quote from the transactional distance theory. If we work to reduce the psychological space between participants and instructors through pedagogy, it will lead to higher learning outcomes. And I guess that's what we're doing this for, aren't we? We want students to learn, and it's about kind of reducing that space psychologically between them and us so that we can achieve that. So we're going to look at some tools and some practices to help make that happen, make that a reality. And as I'm sure you're aware, because it seems like you're all doing this anyway, really, it can be quite difficult at times, especially closing that gap, that psychological distance between ourselves and the student, especially when they are working asynchronously. When we're together, like say someone mentioned that they use Google Meet to deliver live lessons. When that happens, we know the students are there, and it makes it a lot easier. But when we're just setting them off on some work, the ability to be there and journey with them in that work, when we're not actually physically or remotely present in real time, can be really difficult. So hopefully over the next 20 minutes, we can have a look at some tools and some tips to kind of aid that and make that possible. So I've made this slide for you. Okay, so you will have access to this whole slide deck after today. And I've made this slide as a resource, really. So I'm not really going to go through this, but you can see there on the left-hand side, you've got some ways and some tools you can use if you're using Google for Education. In the middle there, if you're using Office 365 or Microsoft Teams. And then on the end, on the far right-hand side there, you've got some other tools that also aid teacher presence. And each one, or most of them, have a link there that you can click on either to watch a tutorial or to see more information or go to the website of that specific tool. So I'm going to leave that there for you. Okay, I'm not going to go through it, but what I want to do with this session is to look at 3 examples, and I'm returning back to that kind of definition that we looked at just a couple of minutes ago, and how to reduce that psychological distance between the teacher and student. And I want to firstly look at how we can make good lessons so that the teacher is present, and we're going to do that by, I'm going to look at how you can virtually journey with students through a lesson, and I'm going to show you Screencastify, YouTube, Google Classroom, and I do this through Google Slides, and I'll show you an example of that. And then we'll have a look at how we can create meaningful spaces for communication, and we'll look at office hours in terms of creating a space where you can communicate with students. And we're going to see how we can do that with using Google Calendar. And then the last one there, giving clear instructions. I'm just going to show you a basic tool, which some of you might already be using, but how to get the most out of Google Classroom announcements so that you can give instructions to students. I'm primarily using here Google for Education. However, all these 3 things have their counterpart in Microsoft Teams. Okay, so you can go over to Microsoft Teams and you can do pretty much the same thing here. Okay, and to learn how to do that, if you don't already know, you can go back to that previous slide, and there's some links there. Okay, so what I want to look at first is how to make good lessons where you're journeying with the students. So virtually journeying with students through a lesson. And Emma, in her talk this morning, she mentioned a tool called Screencastify. And Screencastify is a Chrome extension. So if you're using Google Chrome, you can install that Chrome extension. And the free version gives you 5 minutes recording time per video. Okay, if you want to pay for the updated version, you can do unlimited. However, I find that 5 minutes is enough, because I think students keeping their attention for longer than 5 minutes is very difficult, especially when introducing new content or giving them instructions. and breaking it down into chunks really helps. So I just want to show you an example of how this can be done. So this is a Google slide deck that I created for my business studies class. So I teach a few different subjects. One of them is business studies. And this is a workbook that I created with Google Slides, but I wanted them to do it on their own. So it wouldn't be part of a live lesson. It would just be them getting on with it in their own time. And this happened over in the UK. We had our main lockdown for coronavirus was back from March to July. So this was created during that time for them to have a look at this. And using Screencastify, so I essentially just I recorded videos, uploaded them to YouTube, and I've created, and I'm going to show you this screen here. I've created a playlist. This was primarily made for my school, but I want to share it with you today. And it's a playlist on YouTube that takes you through how to create your own YouTube channel using your school account or your personal account, and how to upload videos there from Screencastify and how to share them. And I have put them, if I go back to the slides, I have put the links to that in this slide here. Okay, so you've got access to that. And I have embedded them within these Google Slides. Okay, so I can insert the YouTube videos, and it serves as kind of just the teacher presence journeying through that lesson. So if I just go through some of the slides here with you, and I've made some icons in the top left-hand corner so that the students know the kind of activity they're going to be doing. So they've got some reading to do here, some more reading, and then I want them to watch this video, which I've created. And then on this task here, I want them to actually do some work. So I've put the pen icon there, but I've also got a little video in the top right-hand corner. And if I present that, you can see what that looks like. And the video is embedded in the top right-hand corner. And if I click that, it will start playing.
Okay, on this page,
and it has.
You will need to do some writing, as you can see on the.
And I'll just pause it there. So it's me taking them through. So you can see there, I am taking them through that specific page with instructions. Okay, so it's a really nice way. I really love that being able to embed the videos within the slides as a really nice way to journey with them on each slide, to give them instructions, and so that they can hear the teacher's voice. They know that the teacher knows what the slide they're on and the task that they're doing, and can explain it to them. And then that can be posted within Google Classroom. If you're using Office 365 or Teams, you've also got the ability there to be able to record your PowerPoint. So if you're not using Google Slides, you're using PowerPoint, it's also the ability there to record that. And then you can upload that to Teams, and you've got a similar effect where the teacher is talking through the slides and giving instruction on what to do. So that teacher voice is really coming through there, so that students aren't just kind of left with work where some might understand it, some might not understand it, but you're making it more accessible through being able to talk to them, so they can hear your voice, they can see your face if you choose to put your camera on for that, and they can see you working through. One last thing to mention on that, and it's something in my school we use a technique called I do, we do, you do, and it's just a nice way of being able to show students how to do a certain task or how to do a certain skill. And I really find that these videos work well with that. So it's a way of me being able to work through an example with them. So if I work through an example and then I get them to do it along with me, and then I can leave them then to just get on with the task themselves. Now, obviously, in that whole time, I am not there in real time. It's all pre-recorded, so I can create that in advance, and I can put that onto my Google Classroom or onto my Microsoft Teams for them to do in their own time. And then I've got that resource as well. So unlike a live lesson where I have to keep repeating it all the time, I have got that as a resource that I can bring out when I need to and tweak it in the future. So it's what I'm really finding is during the lockdown over here in the UK, and the fact that we were off school for those few months, that we really created a nice bank of resources that we can use over and over again, which I'm sure you're finding as well, and adding to them now. So now that we're back in the school building, our staff are still continuing to add to those resources that we can hopefully use year in, year out with students, tweak them as we go. Okay, so I want to move on to the second one now. So the creating meaningful spaces for communication. So this one is really for, so if you've set your students off for the day or for the week and said that a certain piece of work needs to be done by a certain time, but they can go off and do it in their own time, it's how do you create a space where they can come together, maybe for half an hour, to bring their questions. So it's kind of let them get on with it, but then let them, if they've got any questions, to make a note of that, and then they know that there's going to be a half an hour with the teacher at a future point before they hand it in, where they can ask questions and then go back and maybe improve their work. And for want of a better phrase, I've called this office hours. And this can be done on Google Calendar. And when I put that Google form out at the start, I noticed that some of you had said that you already chat to your students. This is just, I guess it's a way to organize it. So if you can do this in Microsoft Teams in the calendar in there, and you can do it in Google Calendar. I'm going to show you an example from Google Calendar. I'm just going to open this link here. So you can see here my calendar. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to create an event. So let's say on Sunday the 20th at 9 o'clock in the morning, I want to create a drop-in session for my students so that they can come in, ask their questions before they get on with their work for that day. So I'm just going to create a calendar event. So if I just click on the 9 o'clock, it's going to open up this dialog box. And I'm just going to call it student drop-in. Going to click more options so I can see the options for this calendar event. And it has here add Google Meet video conference. So I'm going to click that. And what that's done is now integrated into that calendar event a Google Meet. I don't need to add a location, but if I want to put some instructions at the bottom, so drop in and ask your questions at this time, and I could make that every week really. So I could say at this time every week. And what I would need to do then is just at the top where it says do not repeat. If I click that, and I'm going to click to repeat weekly. Now it's going to occur weekly, and I've just realized that it's set on a Sunday then. I want it to be set on a Monday. There we go. So it's going to repeat weekly on 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. And just underneath, so you can see here it has the meeting code. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that meeting code. So if I highlight that meeting code and copy it, click save, that appears in my calendar. Now, if I want students to also have access to that, all I can do is go back, edit it, and I can add them as guests here. So I can click on that, add them their email addresses, and they will this event will appear in their Google Calendar as well, and they will be able to see that. So if you are using Google Calendar with them, or that's something that you would like to do to help them stay organized, especially if they're working in an asynchronous way at home, then it will appear in their calendar and it will stay there because you've said, well, it's going to appear every week. So it'll appear every week that Monday morning, 9 o'clock. And then the Google Meet link will be there. So if I come out of here and I click the event, you can see there the big blue button that says join with Google Meet is there. And that will be there for every event every week. And we just click that and it will take us to a Google Meet where you can chat with the students. The reason I copied the link just a bit earlier is so that you can take that link and you can paste it into your Google Classroom. Okay, so you can, if you're using Google Classroom, you could paste it into your Google Classroom. And I will just go over to Google Classroom now. And I could go to my classwork page. And I'm going to click create some material and link to student drop-in session. This is every Monday at 9 a.m. And I'm just going to click add a link. And I'm going to paste that link for the Google Meet in there. And then I'm going to click post. And then that post is going to appear at the top of my Google Classroom, and then you can see it there, link to student drop-in session. And what I would do with that, I'm just going to keep that up right at the top of my classwork page, and then students always know it's there. So every Monday, if they're not using Google Calendar, they can come to their Google Classroom and they can open that. And in a very similar way with Microsoft Teams, you can create a Microsoft Teams video call within your Teams calendar and then post a link to it on your Teams chat, where students can then jump into that whenever you want them to. So it's a really nice way. And I know you might be using other tools to do this with chat, but I think it's really nice to see how it can integrate into the platform you're using as well. Now, obviously, I'm just using primarily Google for Education as the platform to demonstrate this, but these tools are pretty much available within Microsoft Teams and Office as well. And you can, again, in this slide deck that's available with this session, you can go back to that and you can click the links to find out how to do this in Microsoft Office and Teams. So really nice. I've done that a few times, and you get some students in who want to come in and ask questions and some students who don't. You also get some students who are a bit self-conscious, don't want to ask questions in front of other students. If that's the case, I can take them to another Google Meets, or I can use Google Chat as well. So there's a great tool within Google called Google Chat, which is a bit like WhatsApp, but within your Google domain. So students have to be logged in with their school email address. You're logged in with your school email address just to give you that bit of extra security for safeguarding and all of that. So you can chat with them if you don't want to have the video call as well. Okay, and I'm just going to come back to the last the last part of how to make yourself present to students and when you are teaching in an asynchronous way. So I think probably one of the most important parts of this is giving clear instructions. One of the biggest things in my school that we had to learn very quickly when we went into lockdown and when we were given instructions was that our instructions have to be very airtight. So we found that if some teachers were writing very vague instructions, then it led to some students having a lot of misconceptions about what the actual task was and getting confused. So we had to actually we did a session with our staff where we said, well, how do we try and make our instructions very simple and very clear so that students can follow them and there's no misconceptions there with actually what to do in the task. So always something to have in the back of our mind. I guess that's something when we're actually in the physical classroom as well. We want to try and do well to how do we use an economy of words to get across what we want to say. One way that we did this was within Google Classroom. So if I go back to Google Classroom here, we used the stream, and in Microsoft Teams there's something very similar here. There's stream where you can chat with your class. Looks very similar, and you can do very similar things with it. And we use this for instruction. So if the class were doing asynchronous learning all of that day, so there was no live lessons, they just had work that they had to get on with in their own time. at the start of the day, we could post something in the stream here. So if work was set in the classwork tab, you could just remind them, and I'm just going to write in here, good morning. So this was a year 10 class. Good morning, year 10. Your work for today is in the classwork page. And then I just remind them about the drop-in as well. So don't forget that the student drop-in is available at 9 a.m. See the link in the classwork page. And then I can add various things there as well. So if I want to add something from my Google Drive, a link, a file, a YouTube video, I found that when I was working with my exam classes, so our year 11 classes, so they do GCSE exams when they're 16 years old. I would drop in there a daily motivation video. Sometimes a bit cheesy, but I found some of the students really enjoyed them. So I would go on YouTube, find a good motivational video that would kind of help get them in the zone for the day, for their working, and I would just post that in there with my instructions for the day. Also, sometimes maybe so I would add a GIF. So if I found like a funny GIF or something like that, just to put that in there as well. Just trying to kind of close that psychological distance between teacher and student when you can't do that in real time. So if I post this on here now, some students might be getting up out of bed early and see that early, and then want to try and get their work done for the day within the morning. So amazing for them to be able to get their work done in the morning, and then have some time free in the afternoon. Some students maybe slept in a little bit. I'm sure you're probably experiencing that yourself. Some students not actually getting up till about 10 a.m. but then the work's there as well, the instructions there, they can access it as well, and then they can get on with that in their own time. So they might be working a little bit later than the students who got up earlier. So just the advantages, I guess, of being able for them to work in their own time. So I'm going to leave that there because I'm just conscious there's a couple of minutes left. So if you have any questions, can you please write them in the chat, and I'll spend the next couple of minutes answering them if you have them. While you're doing that, I'm just going to remind you that this hybrid learning webinar series is available. So this breaks down kind of lots of the different tools that you can use when hybrid teaching. It's an amazing set of videos there that you can go and have a look at. So the link is there for you. Also, the resources from today are going to be on the Lebanon Education Resources website, where you're accessing the links for these sessions. So I'm going to leave it there for questions if any come in. Thanks, Carol. So Carol's just said informative. I hope so, and I really hope that this slide deck as well can be a resource that you take away with you and go back through. And I know this session's been recorded, so you could maybe take the slide deck with the record and go back through, and then that resource page with the links, hopefully that'll be handy for you. So if you in the future, when you're planning, or you think, actually, is there something else new I could do here, you can go back, and I'll just go really quickly back to that page there, and you've got lots of links and resources there to help you. Thank you very much for joining me. It's been amazing to be able to connect with you over in Lebanon, and I hope you have a lovely day and enjoy the rest of the sessions. Thank you, everyone.